Intent matters in these types of quote unquote crimes. I don't consider it a crime. Telling us what our government, who's supposed to be working for us, is doing, I just consider that responsible oversight. So with that being said, we're talking about a good guy who, conversely to those scumbags who want to divide and conquer us and constantly spy on us and erode away every right and liberty that we have as, freeborn human beings that don't derive our rights from the losers that try to lord it over us. We have Jack Teixeira, who it was discovered, well, not discovered, but it came out this week, is the leaker of earlier in the week, it was discovered that classified documents from the Pentagon were placed into a Discord server dealing with the popular child's video game Minecraft. And the source of these leaks were not known for a few days. First time I saw the story was earlier this week on a Monday. But by Thursday, it was either Thursday or no, I think Friday they arrested him. Thursday they knew who it was, but Friday they arrested him. Friday, April 14th, they arrested him. And he is a part of, I want to say, the Massachusetts National Guard in the Air Force, had high-level security clearance, so he had access to intel regarding the United States' involvement in and surveillance of the ongoing war in Ukraine. And he posted some 100+ documents to a Discord server, which made its way to 4chan. And then next thing you know, these documents were everywhere. And now Mr. Teixeira is in deep, deep shit.
By the way, where did Snowden come from?
NSA, yeah. But I think he was a military contractor before that.
Sure, but he was still in there, and that's how the documents crossed his.
Of course.
And of course, he shouldn't have, because they were classified.
Right.
But he had an onus to the American people to let them know what these documents were saying. So they shouldn't have been classified. The people had the right to know, and he took action. Yeah. So that sounds a lot like what Teixeira did.
Yeah.
Eerily like what Teixeira did. Only Teixeira didn't sneak out of the cloak of darkness before he released the files, so they got to him before he could get up.
Yeah, the kind of gray era between Teixeira and Snowden and Assange really isn't even in the same bubble, because Assange was just a publisher.
Didn't bring him up.
The person who actually leaked the documents that got Assange in trouble was Bradley Manning. Later changed his name to Chelsea Manning, but he leaked the documents.
They got to him.
That
sorry, couldn't help myself.
Sorry,
don't mean to insult
anybody. He leaked
anybody.
the documents to Assange, which Assange published. But Snowden, like David was saying, released documents with the purpose of letting the American people know, like, hey, your government's spying on you, and not only are they spying on you, they're lying when they're asked publicly, hey, are you spying on American people without a warrant?
And remember that accountability
blatant violation of the Fourth Amendment. And Snowden's purpose was to warn the American people that this was going on. Well, Teixeira inhabits a bit of a gray area because he did neither of those things. And ostensibly, he was not even trying to share the documents with a wider audience. He had a Discord server, like I said, where they talked about stuff on, Minecraft related stuff, of about 20 to 30 individuals, some of them teenagers that, followed Teixeira or whatever. And he just wanted to share the documents to that Discord server to keep those 20 or 30 individuals informed of world events, because he thought that was important, and that it was never intended that those documents would leave that Discord server. Now, of course, you could say, well, of course, dummy, it's going to leave. It's the internet. Once it goes on there, it's, it'll spread, super fast.
Welcome to the social media generation.
But intent matters in these types of quote unquote crimes. I don't consider it a crime. Telling us what our government, who's supposed to be working for us, is doing, I just consider that responsible oversight.
May I?
But
an analogy?
Yeah.
So if 4 kids play hooky and cut out early from school, granted, they did something wrong. But then when they're playing down by the creek and find a washed up dead body, what takes precedent, Dane? Does the fact that they gypped their social studies class take precedent? Or does the fact that they found a dead body take precedent and there's been a murder that's occurred?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we'd all focus on the dead body.
I would hope.
Yeah.
I would hope.
So you might be wondering, well, what's in the Teixeira documents that is getting him in trouble, because I was just, David and I were talking about this before we hit the record button on this episode. And we're like, you remember when the Snowden stuff happened and everybody was, the first thing that the deep state did to try to discredit Snowden was appeal to the American culture of, wrap yourself in the flag and subordinate yourself to the troops, right? Everything that has to do with the military is sacred. And don't you ever put a military member in jeopardy or else you're just the scum of the earth. And that's what they tried to say Snowden did, right? That his leaks, compromised sources and methods and, one of their favorite buzz phrases. And it put American service personnel at risk in country, wherever they were stationed or undercover or whatever. And I thought it was funny when I started looking for Jack Teixeira stuff, and it was like everything was about him. Who was he as an individual? What was his purpose? Why did he leak these documents? It was not, hey, we're going to try to character assassinate this guy by saying that he compromised other people's identities and stuff like that. And I thought that was funny. I was like, why isn't character assassination their go-to? They want to make you hate the guy, make him the villain, so they're not the villains. Kind of which way did he go? Pointing fingers, kind of situation. And that's not what they did. Well, once I was able to finally track down an article that even remotely touched on what type of information was disclosed in the documents, it made sense. It made sense why it was all Teixeira and who he is and his motivations and not what was in the documents, because what's in the documents is high fucking treason on the part of the Biden administration. Because not only under the Constitution is it the purview of the legislative branch to issue a declaration of war before the executive is allowed to go to war, a tradition which has been completely exploded for quite some time. But in the 70s, the Congress passed the War Powers Resolution intended to rein in overzealous executives who wanted to rush into war without asking the legislature to exercise its constitutional duties and declare war first.
That's worked so well, by the way.
For President Biden to intervene, as he's promised not to do, I'm not putting boots on the ground in Ukraine, but to fly drones, American weaponry over Ukraine, to have boots in the region, if not in country. These are acts of war. These are acts of war against as we've said before, the most heavily nuclear armed state on the planet, Russia, followed closely by the United States. These are in no uncertain term acts of war. So it is a very real possibility, and this is not hyperbole at all, that Teixeira sharing these documents, regardless of what his motivations were, to just simply show off to his friends or to tell the American people what the government was doing, it's not hyperbole to suggest that him sharing these things stopped World War III. Because the United States regime was escalating, as was made evidence by these documents. And if nothing else, if this shames them into pulling back and not getting more involved in Ukraine, as they should have never been from the start, then we may have taken at least a marginal step back away from the brink. So it doesn't matter what his motivations are. The fact that he did that, and that might be the consequence of it, is that the United States pulls back on the reins a little bit. That is a net positive, not only for American citizens, but for all of humanity.
But let's not forget, there was a president not so long ago that was held accountable for lying to the American people. Was it about bombs? Was it about illegal operations in another country? Was it about...
I think it was about fellatio in the Oval Office.
That's exactly what it was about, Dane. We had a president ask what the definition of is. Within the own asking of the question, he used the word that he was asking the definition for. So he clearly had previous knowledge. All I'm saying is, we held our president-elect, Bill Hillary Clinton, to tribunal impeachment and indictment of getting a blowjob in the Oval Office. Did that. We held him accountable. I think that's the last time any politician has ever been held accountable. So what we're saying is,
like, was he though? He was impeached, but he wasn't removed from office.
He wasn't.
Was he really held accountable?
Well, he came out and said, I lied to you, American people. I did get that Hummer, and it was good. We were playing hide and seek, and all of a sudden it got really randy. Then I had a cigar, and she goes, you want to do something fun? I said, you betcha. Anyway.
You betcha.
You betcha. Anyway. Anyway. If you're inside, you're inside. Anyway, all I'm saying is, like, I could let an Oval Office blowjob go if you hold the person accountable for lying to the... Again, it's not about, like, escalating at this point. It's like he was willing to go out and say, I don't have boots on the ground in Ukraine, and walk back into his office knowing full fucking well that he was escalating shit to a point where it's...
If they're not, they're literally, here's the border from Ukraine, and the boots are like right on the edge of the border.
So when he said the statement, he probably walked back into the office and said, let him go. Because when he said the statement, they weren't technically on the ground, but then they moved in. That's the funny business. They weren't on the ground. I watched a war with a president of a secretary of the Internal Affairs, Rocky Balboa. He is fighting a Russian communist known as El Cuchamadre, otherwise known as Dolph Lundgren. And he won. So I didn't order those boots. Nobody wants boots. Anyway, all I'm saying is, like, this is nuclear holocaust we're talking about. like, and I know if you're just watching on your phone, you're watching on your computer, you like doing that, right? You probably watch other things there. You probably listen to other things there. You probably engage with most of the world there. A nuclear blast doesn't have to actually land for an EMP to distribute itself. And you know what EMPs do, Dane?
Destroy electronics.
So it does affect you. So you can't put your little Instagram post up of you making brownies on Saturday. And you can't do your little TikTok dance anymore. And you can't tell that other red-blooded American that he's wrong because he believes in guns, and you're standing up for the rights of the American citizens by saying that you need to give it up because I believe that you shouldn't have them. Like, you can't do that anymore. It's all gone. We're back to fucking Stone Age.
Yeah. And I mean, even hitting a little more close to home than your Instagram posts, for all you blue no matter who riding with Biden people in the major cities around the United States, New York City, LA, Chicago, things like that.
Guess who's targeted first?
Well, not only who's targeted first, but if any portion of the power grid goes down, you all have about a nanosecond worth of food. And if you think that you're,
we're not conspiracy theorists.
Your other blue, no matter who neighbor that you've heretofore been in agreement with on everything isn't going to turn on you just as quick when there's one little chicken leg left between the two of you.
No, wait. What are your pronouns?
Don't
kill me. My pronouns are he, she, it, her. What do you need to hear?
You people who want to excuse everything Biden does just because he's not Orange Man, you're the ones that are the most at risk. It's not those rednecks out in flyover country that own 10 acres apiece and can grow their own food and are self-sufficient. It's you people in the big cities if the power grid goes down. So this isn't any sort of playing political favorites or anything like that. But, you live in your blue utopias and you think everything's just fantastic. And why would we question, what Biden's doing? He's the president, duly elected in a free and fair election. He can do whatever he wants. He's the commander in chief. Okay. But if Jack Teixeira is not out there calling, you know, calling it out and hopefully getting the United States to step back from the brink a little bit, your life could be a hell of a lot rougher really fast just by virtue of where you live and around millions and millions of people competing for scarce resources.
Here's the thing. We are all still in this together. Whether or not you think that blue states are better than red states.
Not me, bitch. I'm running away to the mountains. I don't have anything to do with any of you. I'm caring for me and mine, and I'm protecting what I got, and leave me out of it. Go crazy and kill each other. I don't want any part of it. Sorry.
That's where Dane goes off the rails. And that's where this podcast loses its followers. All we're trying to say.
No, the followers are allowed to the compound.
All I'm trying to. No, they're not. Fuck out of here. We only have so much food.
Especially the Australian.
We only have so much food. All I'm trying to say is like, this is the time now. This is the time to turn the wheel. This is the time to accept everybody, not force everybody to accept everybody else's, or excuse me, everybody else's. Not force the majority to accept the minority's idealisms. It's not a time to draw lines. It's a time to come together. Because a nuclear bomb doesn't care what your pronouns are. A nuclear bomb does not care if you voted for Biden. A nuclear bomb does not care if you voted for Trump. A nuclear bomb wipes you out all the same. And then guess what? We're all under attack. And then guess what? All of us come together because we realize all the lines that were dividing us right now weren't real. None of these lines that are coming up in our society today that divide all of humanity are real. They're fictitious, they're ethereal, and we only adhere to them because it benefits us in the short run. This is long run. This is humanity. We're all humans. We're all Americans. If you can't right the ship now, if you can't start having a conversation with somebody that wants to own guns and you don't think that guns should be legal, if you can't have that conversation, then you're nuking your child. If you can't have a conversation with somebody that believes in abortion when you're pro-life, you're nuking your child. Shut the fuck up. If you can't have a conversation with a black person when you're a white person, yellow person when you're a brown, I don't give a fuck. We are still humans. We are all Americans. We are all on the same side, and we all need to hold these people accountable. Going back to Culture Corner, sorry, I skipped over that one a little bit. We have to hold them accountable. We have to hold them accountable with our votes, with our words, with our funds, with this, that, and the other. We are the ones that are together. Don't let them divide us. They need to serve us, but right now we're serving them. And if we keep serving them, they will lead us into nuclear holocaust because they know they're going to come out on the other side with all of their billions looking just fine. And there's going to be about 50% less of us on the entire planet. Not just us, everybody. And that just might be what they're after. So if you want to stop that, stop bitching at your friend, your neighbor, your loved one for liking Trump posts. Doesn't matter. Stop bitching at your friend for buying another AR-15. Stop showing them clips, sharing this, that, and the other. Come together. Come together and vote with your heart, but at the same time, make this country work again. That's all there's my soapbox. I'm taking it off. Dane. Last words?
Thank God that kumbaya moment is over. I don't like half of you. Half of you can go kick fucking rocks for all I care.
Look at him. Look at this son of a bitch right over here. I'm looking to throw water on the fire, and he's accelerant.
No, I kid. Only partially. But if nothing else, I hope that we can at least come together on this one topic, and that is Jack Teixeira is a hero. Free Jack. Hashtag Jack did nothing wrong. Because the people who he told on are supposed to be working for you. That theme of David's very ecumenical come together, kumbaya talk, I agree with 10,000%. They work for you. So there is no such thing as spilling their secrets, or of course, they're going to call it illegal and they're going to prosecute him because guess what? They write the rules. They write the rules that they exempt themselves and their buddies from, but they will vehemently enforce those rules on you. So when you spill their beans and make them look bad, of course, they're going to prosecute Teixeira and toss him in a cage and throw away the key. And he's terrible scum of the earth. And he's probably a Russian sympathizer. And he's this and when they're going to drag out every little thing they possibly can to character assassinate this kid. And yes, he is a kid. I think he's like 21 years old. That's what they're going to do. But that's only them showing their hand that, like we talked about in the other segments on this episode, they don't care what you have to say. To David's plane analogy, they're at 10,000 feet and you're not even a dot to them. So in, very Trumpian fashion where Trump says, they're only coming after me because I'm standing between them and you. They're only coming
after me because I'm standing in front of them and you.
That is very real when it comes to somebody in Teixeira's shoes, in Snowden's shoes, in Assange's shoes. When the ones calling out the liars for their lies are the ones that are imprisoned, rather than the liars themselves, then you're ruled by criminals and thieves. That makes it about as clear and obvious as it is. So to any extent that David's calls for peace and cooperation between us don't fall on deaf ears, let's at least come together on that one topic of holding these sons of bitches to account, because they are quickly running us to the edge of a cliff. And if they had it their way, would run us completely off of it. But there's a hell of a lot more of us than them to put a stop to that if we wanted to.
And fuck their, F-15s? Is that what Biden said? And then in case, just a cherry on top, Obama's cabinet was always about open and honest and being truthful. And who released the documents during his campaign?
Snowden. Well, during his presidency.
During his presidency. And then what did Obama try to do?
Didn't try. Threatened to throw him in a cage to the extent that he had to get exile in one of our enemies.
So what they say is not what they do.
Correct.
Again. All that being said.
Exhibit quadruple Q at this point. I lost track of how many
Dane Wise
for that proposition.